The program tonight is Accelerators and Incubators Navigating the Landscape. My name's Alex Medelsky. I'm the program chair for the organization. I'm a startup lawyer with a law firm by the name of Ader Wynn. And I've been in the community here, I guess it's been 15 years now. And I'm the past chair of the Northwest Entrepreneur Network. The MIT Enterprise Forum, how many of you are here for the first time? Okay, so about a third, maybe a little bit more. So MIT Enterprise Forum is an organization based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, where MIT is, obviously. And but there are 27 chapters right now worldwide to the organization. I was in Cambridge 3 weeks ago for the Global Leadership Conference and got to meet people from Paris and from Seoul and places like that. It was pretty interesting. And so the organization puts out a magazine called Technology Review. I don't know if you folks are familiar with it, but the fellow who was the publisher of Red Herring, y'all remember Red Herring magazine from years back? When that magazine first came out, it just blew everybody's mind, I think, sort of just focusing on startup technology companies and sort of investment opportunities, that sort of thing. Jason Ponton is the publisher who published that, is the publisher of Technology Review. So if you're not familiar with it, check it out. The organization's kind of learning how to leverage these various chapters around the world, and probably will add about 3 more chapters this year. Why is there an MIT Enterprise Forum? You know, we've got, if you look around Seattle, how many different groups that are, you know, putting on programs that are relevant to startups. And sort of the niche for this organization is to really focus on cool and inspiring technology that's going to be changing all of our lives, and the intersection of that cool and inspiring technology with business and entrepreneurial opportunities. So that's kind of our spot. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Brian Brewer. Brian is the moderator tonight and really helped pretty much put together this program. So Brian has been very involved in the startup community here for just about the same amount of time as me, 12 years. And Brian has helped various startups raise about $20 million. In the past, he was helping startups sort of get clear about what their business opportunities were, how to go out. He would help write business plans and help with pitches, that sort of thing. Now he's more focusing on helping them to raise money. In a couple weeks, he's got a program coming up. His business is called Funding Quest. And if you go to his website, www.funding-quest.com, you can find out more about his upcoming program. I attended one of the programs. In fact, my law firm was a sponsor of that program, and it was really, really, really good. And we got excellent reviews from the people who attended. Brian, I'm going to let you take it away and introduce your panel.
So when Alex and I and several other people are on the program committee for Venture Lab, and we work all year to think about what do you folks want to hear about. And we've had a couple of programs earlier this year, one on angel funding, where we had all the angel groups represented, and several other programs recently. But this whole idea of incubators and accelerators kept coming up. And so we thought, well, let's put on a program and invite some of the representatives of these local groups and have a chance and have them talk about their programs, and then, but primarily have a chance for you folks who are interested to ask questions. And so first I'd like to ask a little bit about the audience. How many folks here are actually in an incubator or accelerator program? All right, that's about what I expected, because if you're already in one, you don't need to come and hear about all the others. How many folks might consider joining an incubator or accelerator program? All right, excellent. So I would encourage you folks who raised your hand just now, and anybody else as well, when we get to the Q&A part a little bit later, please don't hesitate to ask questions, because this is your chance to find out about these programs, and there are others as well. So let me go ahead and introduce our panelists. So first here is Brian Howe is the founder of Hub Seattle. Brian is also, Brian's an attorney. In fact, his Twitter handle is Social Biz Lawyer, and Brian has focused a lot on social type enterprises. He's the founder of Vox Legal PLLC, that's the law firm, and he has helped set up unique structures, including one of the largest nonprofit VC funds to invest in early stage startups. That was in India, right? Yeah. Anyway, you can read a lot about the panelist bio in here. Part of the reason we do this is because we're videotaping this, and the video stands alone, and so we want to have a little bit of introduction on the video about who these folks are. Anyway, Brian is the founder of Hub Seattle, and you're going to hear a lot about all these programs, especially Hub. Sitting next to Brian is Sanjay Puri, and Sanjay is one of the principals in 9 Mile Labs. Sanjay has a background building database applications at Oracle and other companies in the past. He co-founded thinkindia.com and exited successfully in 2001. And as a product and marketing executive, he's worked with several startups, including iConclude, Opsware, Edifex, and large corporations such as Microsoft and Hewlett-Packard. Sanjay has a BS in electrical engineering from IIT BHU in India and an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management. All right, next to Sanjay is Seaton Grass. I've known Seaton for many years. I am doing it again, aren't I? Seaton is the founder of Surf Incubator. And Surf has actually been in existence for a number of years, but just last year, a little more than a year ago, found its new home over here on 2nd and Marion in Exchange Building. And how many people have been to either Surf Incubator or the Hub Seattle? Okay, oh, great. Okay, so you're familiar with some of these, the locations. By the way, 9 Mile Labs is also located now at Surf Incubator. So, and I didn't say a whole lot about Seaton. He's got a very interesting biography. He's, in particular, I'll mention two things. He founded a company called Wizzy Mouse. That's, what's he call it, a clickable visual search engine. He holds a patent related to that. And the other interesting thing about Seaton is he spent almost a decade sailing around the world and learning to speak numerous languages. And I've been on his boat, and maybe he'll do it again someday, who knows. And last but not least is Lindsay Batan. Lindsay is Lindsay's program manager at Techstars Seattle. And she's here representing Techstars, the local, the Seattle chapter of that. Techstars is well, at least they have chapters in the part of the rest of the country. Are there any international chapters for? London. There's a chapter in London, or a program in London, right? Lindsay has a background in marketing and communications. She's worked on marketing projects for startups and many other things in the bio here. But most recently, she was with a Techstars company in recent years, and the company moved to Boston, and she decided to stay. And so she's got this dual perspective of being on the entrepreneur side and then now on the incubator or accelerator side with Techstars. So let's welcome our panel. So thanks for being here. So the way this will work tonight is I'm just going to ask a question. It's kind of an open-ended general question, and I'd like each of you to take a little bit of time answering it. And you can do it in any order you want, and then we might get some specific questions for several of you. But my first question for each of the panelists is, what was your inspiration for starting an incubator or accelerator or being involved in one? The first three here are founders, and then Lindsay, you can talk about your involvement in it. So whoever wants to jump in, please use the microphone so we can capture this on video.
Sure. So I should clarify a little bit. Hub is actually an incubator environment as opposed to an incubator itself. What I mean by that is it's a place where you can come and get some just-in-time resources, curated introductions, access to training, access to service providers, but it itself is not a traditional incubator in that it has a application, investment, not necessary, obviously, and then a set period of time. However, I can speak lightly on behalf of 3 actual incubators. Hub houses an incubator that I'm a partner in called Fledge, and it's ran by Michael Looney Libus. And so Looney's the managing partner, and it's housed at Hub, and it is a incubator in the traditional sense. Sister to Fledge is something called Kick, and Kick is what we'll be running this summer at Hub, and it's called the Inclusive Incubator. So it's for everyone whose heart was crushed when Lindsay passed you over for Techstars. We can take you in at Kick. So it's taking the view that we want to provide similar opportunities for folks that might not be ready or might not be the right fit for some of the other incubators, and we can still provide some of the same content and training. And Looney manages as that as well. And then I probably won't speak to it much, but UW, the Center for Commercialization, and Fluke Hall is another place where I get to hang my hat sometimes, and obviously they're doing a lot of work in the incubation space there as well. So not being a founder, I can't directly answer that question beyond that. When I was working with Looney in the early days of getting Fledge off the ground, the focus was really on providing an incubator that accepted both tech and brick and mortar and looked specifically for companies in the conscious company spaces, where Looney's come to call it. So companies that are looking for consumers that are making purchasing decisions based on social and environmental issues, whether it be brick and mortar or retail.
Brian,
brick and mortar or online.
So Brian, say more about your inspiration founding of Hub Seattle.
Sure. So, as Brian said, I'm an attorney. It doesn't surprise anyone out there to look at this panel and say, "Oh, yeah, the one in the suit." And so, as a startup attorney, I really loved working with the entrepreneurs I got to serve, and really hated billing them. So there's just this disparity between the needs that some of the youngest, hungriest entrepreneurs have and the ability of a small firm to service them in a delayed structure. And so kind of got to the point where I realized the majority of my time wasn't spent doing billable legal work, and so tried to come up with a way to justify getting to do what I wanted to do, and not worry about whether or not I could put on the billable at the end of the week. And so getting to move more into a co-working and incubator environment allows me to run after whatever fancy I have for those 10 minutes that my attention can stay in one place.
All right. So Sanjay, tell us about the inspiration to found 9 Mile Labs.
Sure. About the middle of last year, it was clear to me that the healthcare software company that I was working for, that I was running marketing for, I was done with that company, and I knew that I needed to do something entrepreneurial. So that part was clear. I got to meet an old associate, Sandy Sharma, along with Kevin Croy, who's sitting right there. And we started exploring the space of entrepreneurship in the area. What was shocking to us is that the Seattle metropolitan area has the second largest concentration of technology talent in the world, not in the US, in the world. Yet our throughput of startups is just amazingly low. And as we start looking at this space and talking to a number of entrepreneurs, investors, and other folks in the area, it became pretty clear to us that the ecosystem, while Techstars, Madrona, Ignition, a number of folks have done a brilliant job of supporting the community, there is a need to nurture and support early-stage entrepreneurs. That was truly what fired us up. That was truly what we felt passionate about. And we embarked on this journey sometime in the October timeframe. That's when we knew that we were going to do an accelerator. We met few of you guys during that timeframe, Dave being one of them. And that is primarily what drove us to essentially found 9 Mile Labs. That's about it.
Okay, thank you, Sanjay. So Seaton, what inspired you to form Surf Incubator?
Personal frustration. So let me explain that. I had been working on WYSIMOUSE for a number of years. Patent was in the process. I think it had just been issued. And I was discovering the iPhone. and back in early 2009, it just blew me away. It was a perfect platform, a wonderful interface, and I wanted to program for it. I'd already taught myself how to do MySQL and HTML and PHP and a number of other computer programs. But when I got to the iOS, I said, okay, simple enough. I'll buy a book, I'll buy a laptop, and I'll go to Hawaii, and I'll study how to do iPhone development. So I bought the Beginner's Guide to iPhone, and since the phone had just been released, this was a brand new book, and figured one day a chapter, I should be able to get through this in a 2-week trip to Hawaii. What's wrong with that picture? 4 days into it, nothing would work. Nothing would build. I didn't know what the problem was. I was a beginner. The book was for beginners. It should have told me what was wrong, but nothing worked. So I found out 4 days later that the book was full of hard-coded bugs, and it was never edited. And so in frustration, I then came home and I pitched an idea that programmers should be next to each other, startups should help each other, programmers can get together and just be supportive and maybe look over their shoulders, and you can learn faster. And so I pitched the idea at a meetup group. I had a few people say yes. It grew from 1 day a week to then 3 days a week and then 5 days a week. And then I finally got a place at Regis. And I was there for over 1.5 years, and Regis is the executive suite facility. They just loved what I was doing. So we had meetups, and we talked about iPhone. It grew. It added other topics, and we brought in speakers. We had sponsors, and it just grew organically. Finally, it was, like Brian said, it was a little over 1 year ago when I found the place that we're at now. And I said, my pain is not unique. My pain has clearly been shared by the iOS programmers and Android programmers and the like. And I had met so many people through these meetings that I was convinced that there was an opportunity. So I opened the doors without a single customer ready to buy anything, and 15,000 square feet, and it was crazy. But lo and behold, we're almost full now. So we have almost 100 programmers. And everybody helps each other. And literally, I can struggle still on iPhone programming, and I can spend a day trying to figure it out on my own, which is my preferred way to go. But then I finally come up to the frustration, and I'll say, I know that this line of code has some problem. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I could sure use some help. So I go out to my floor, and I find a programmer, and I say, can you look at what I've got? This is where I think I have a problem. And he'll look at it, and within 10 minutes, he says, well, it's very simple. You need to add these letters, SELF, period. Okay, I did it. It worked. Now I add it to every line. But literally that it took him 10 minutes to figure out what was wrong. I still, to this moment, do not know what the heck that meant, but it fixed it.
Okay. Thank you, Seaton. So, Lindsay, I'm going to ask you a little different question since you're not the founder of Techstars. But can you speak a little bit to what you know about the motivation for the founding of Techstars, and then also what's your motivation to be a program manager at Techstars Seattle?
Yeah. And before I say anything, I'm going to address the sunglasses. I had LASIK. I had LASIK a couple of days ago, so that's why I'm wearing sunglasses indoors, in case any of you were wondering why I'm sitting up here wearing sunglasses.
It's not just to look cool, right?
It's not just to look cool. Yeah, so there is a purpose behind them. So Techstars. So yeah, Techstars, the inspiration behind it started in 2006. David Cohen, the CEO, he had been doing a lot of early stage seed investment, and he saw that there was a problem with the way that investors were working with entrepreneurs, and wanted to create a new way for that to happen. So he decided investors should be on the side of the entrepreneur, and tested out this new model where he wanted to be very mentor and community driven. Tested out in Boulder, Colorado. It worked, and from there moved on to expand outside of Boulder to now Techstars is in Seattle, Chicago, Boston, New York, San Antonio, Austin, and now also in London. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from David Cohen. My inspiration to join Techstars as a program manager, I was actually in the Microsoft Accelerator. I joined a team in the Microsoft Accelerator, and that's kind of was my first experience working in the whole land of startups, and I loved it. And the company that I was working for moved to Boston. I wanted to stay in Seattle. I had met Andy Sack, the managing director of Techstars Seattle, and the timing worked out where he needed a program manager for Techstars Seattle. So it's kind of interesting that I've been on kind of both sides, as being in the accelerator and now helping to run one.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay. All right, so the next question that I want each of you to address, which is fundamental to people understanding, what your business is what is your business model? Because there's quite a variation, I think, in the business model. And Brian, maybe you can, I know you spoke earlier about some of the incubators within the hub, but maybe you can keep this focused on Hub Seattle for the time being, at least, right? Okay, so whoever,
Answer easier.
yes, so whoever wants to jump in.
I guess I got the mic again. So took it from you. Sure. So Hub Seattle's business model is membership fees. So we have about 550 individuals who pay monthly membership dues. That sounds impressive, but it starts all the way down at $35 a month for 2 days a month of workspace, meeting room access, and access to our events. We have a partnership with Northwest Entrepreneurship Network, who's in our building, and they run a number of great events that are made available to Hub members, along with a number of other organizations, including Bainbridge Graduate Institute, which is one of our in-house MBA programs. And so there's a few levels up above that. So that's the primary stream of revenue, and then we supplement that with event bookings. So we have an event space that we rent out for a variety of events, heavy focus on entrepreneur-focused events. But sometimes we need to take some others as well to fill up the calendar and make sure we're able to pay the bills. And so really that's our business model, pretty straightforward. All memberships are month to month, with the exception of private offices. We have about 9 now private offices. Otherwise, it's just individual members paying monthly dues.
For an accelerator in general, I think it's quite simply, really. So I'll divide it into 2 parts, the gives and the gets. So the gives, from a 9 Mile perspective, are that we invest in the startups, about $20K per startup. In addition, we provide them workspace. We provide them access to a pretty solid list of mentors who are experts in the specific areas that they work in. And then also make available a number of customers in terms of customer panels. In return, we get between 4 and 8% of equity from the startups.
So for Surf Incubator, our business model is very similar to the Hub. And different from 9 Mile Labs similar to Hub in the sense it's membership driven, but we don't take equity, as Sanjay was talking about. Although equity is always an interesting opportunity to explore, we'd love to do that, but we're very poorly capitalized. This is a shoestring operation put together with vision and passion and a lot of drive. But the underlying business model is that we're a community-supported space. We reach out to the community to help make it so that we can actually offer a Class A property for under market rates, which is really a kind of a flipped-out way to do it. Actually charge less than it costs to deliver your product. But the goal is to actually provide a facility where entrepreneurs can have some help and not gouge them, not take away overcharging and everything else like that. And it's all about making it so it's really as cheap as possible. We'd love to do it for free, but obviously we don't have the funds for that. So if anybody's interested in that model, I don't think that'll go very far. But I got to tell you, its sponsors have stepped forward, and thanks to Aderwin. Aderwin stepped forward and has helped us with the sponsorship. And the sponsorship is not just about providing the cash to make up the difference because we don't charge enough. And a lot of people say, well, why don't you just charge more? It's just against my mission. But with the sponsors stepping up, they don't just provide cash. They also provide hands-on educational mentoring programs. And they come by and they meet with our members and they make a big difference. And even Brian Brewer has been a very long contributor for thank you very much, helping out and providing courses as well. So the business model is not recommended for the weak. This is a very challenging thing. It's not intended to really spin out a lot of profit. I think we may figure it out in the future of a way to really develop a better business model. But
You'll call me when you do.
yeah, definitely. We should work together on this. But I think everyone here is driven by the passion that startups really are a fundamental part of our future. They're, in my mind, they're our economic engine, and it's my belief from the very get-go that if the future of our economy is predicated on the success of the startups that are launching today, because we know that the larger companies are actually downsizing and moving towards robotics wherever possible. If you can agree with me on that, then shouldn't the community that's going to get the benefit of those startups hiring in the future, shouldn't we be supporting them today while they're really small? Their demands are really de minimis, and we can really make a lot of difference with just a little help. Because the first few years of a company's business, their revenues are inconsequential. Their expenses are nothing. But later, those type of revenues will just look like a joke compared to the profits. Like, look at Apple. Look at the profit that Apple makes. But they started off as a startup. If we could have supported Apple for the first 10 years for free, covered everything, they still would have come out turning out taxes and everything else and all the jobs created. So if you really look at that, the business model is really the community will benefit by successful startups. We should remove as much friction as possible, help them wherever we can to succeed. If they don't fail, they're more likely to hire people. If we can just get them to the point where they start to hire and get momentum and get traction, they're more likely to succeed and hire more and more and more. And that's our business model. Very broken, not recommended for the weak. Take caution.
So the Techstars business model is similar to how Sanjay described the 9 Mile. Techstars, number one, is we invest in our company. So Techstars likes to be viewed as a co-founder. So we provide seed funding and take 6% stake in the companies, and with that we provide a co-working space, and also our 3-month entrepreneurship boot camp ends with a demo day. So more or less, as our companies succeed, Techstars succeeds, since we're on the same side of the table as the founders.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Now, my next question is for Sanjay and Lindsay, because you two have the business model that involves investment. And Lindsay, you didn't say how much you invest for 6% equity. Can you say what that is?
Yeah, so it's $18K with a $100K convertible debt note.
Okay. So if in terms of a startup who might be considering joining one of your either 9 Mile Labs or Techstars, what kind of what's your response to startups when they talk about the valuation and the value of that? You know, what does it cost to get that money as a part of the program? Do you have I mean, because if you do the math, that it translates into a fairly low valuation for a startup company. So at least in terms of when they go to raise angel funding. So what do you say to potential applicants who might raise that issue, if at all?
Yeah, I can just start, and you can add to it, I'm sure. If, as a startup, you feel that you can benefit from a phenomenal network of mentors and a set of partners, which applies both to Techstars as well as to 9 Mile Labs. If you look at the type of partner team, the 5 partners we have at 9 Mile Labs, if you believe that that can add value to your business, the accelerator is for you. What I've discovered through my own years of working professionally, large organizations, small organizations, smarts, good ideas are a given. Those are table stakes. What matters eventually is who you know and how you put it to good use. The mentors, the investor connections that the accelerator can enable, along with the constant pressure of delivering on certain outputs, artifacts, pitches, I believe that's what adds value to the company. So yeah, just leave it.
Yeah, similarly, I think just access to the Techstars network and the mentors, I think that is so valuable. And if you believe that you can benefit from that, then it's definitely worth joining an accelerator, specifically Techstars, just because I think they hold their weight in gold.
It does. I would add one interesting example. I was in Portland like 3 weeks ago at a conference. I met the CEO of this company called Cloudability. By the way, they're very successful right now. I believe they were part of Techstars too. Matt Ellis is the CEO. He has been part of 3 accelerators. And what he's done as part of that is he's given up equity as part of all 3 of those, I believe. 500 Startups was one, Techstars was a second one, and then there was a third one that he was part of. But he's a seasoned entrepreneur. He truly believed and saw the value in what an accelerator can add to the startup and in that network. There are numerous other examples, but that was just an example that just stood out for me, that as a seasoned entrepreneur who has, I believe he has more than 15,000 customers right now for his platform. He saw the value in joining multiple programs.
Yeah, and just to touch base on that as well, there's a great article that David Cohen wrote about, and also one of our founders that just came through Techstars. Am I too far along to join Techstars? Am I going to benefit? And similar companies that had raised a lot of revenue and had lots of customers, and they all said the same thing, that it was definitely worth it to join Techstars.
Okay, thanks. I would echo your sentiment, because when I talk to clients and attendees at my workshops about raising angel funding, I often mention that it's not just the money that counts. The money is good because you need money to operate. But if it's smart money, which to me means it's money that comes from people who have the contacts and the advice and the experience to help your company grow, that's even better. And I think that's a perfect example of what you get from programs like Techstars and 9 Mile Labs. And the same goes, Brian mentioned earlier the incubators that are within the hub, particularly Fledge. Looney, I invited Looney to be here tonight, but he's at another event tonight and couldn't represent Fledge. But it's the same thing there. When you give up some equity for joining an accelerator, like we mentioned here, but you get more than just the money back. You get all this mentorship and the framework, the schedule framework to get things done, which is equally important. If any entrepreneurs know, when you're working by yourself at home or in your garage or something, it's sometimes hard to stay on track. And that's the great thing about any accelerator that has a program that allows you that demands that you meet deadlines and deliverables. That's another big benefit of that. Any other comments about that from anybody? All right, the next thing I wanted to ask was, and again, we're kind of, you've touched on some of these points already, but what would you say to someone who came to you and said, I want to, I'm considering becoming a member or applying for your program. What's in it for me? What's in it for an entrepreneur? Can you summarize that at all? Why would they want to join your program?
Well, the coffee, of course. So we have a cafe membership, and it's only $50 a month, and I guarantee you they're drinking more coffee or tea. But the benefit is they love it. They come in, they're part of a community, they've left their home, they feel they're in a professional setting, they're surrounded by people that are working, which inspires them to go there every day and do more. They see other people succeeding and making advances. They get to talk to different people, and like myself, ask coding questions and get a simple solution to their problem. But by being in that community and moving away from doing it in their home or their basement, God forbid the moldy basement, they get away from the distractions. They get away from wearing flip-flops all day long. They get an opportunity to feel like a professional setting. And when they go to work, they really do productivity because they're no longer distracted by those
But see, it is okay to wear flip-flops at surf, isn't it?
We actually have some that go barefoot, so it's not. What I guess I should say, bedroom slippers and the nightgown. They actually get changed and they come down and they're part of the society. But in so doing, they now have a place where they work, and when they go home, they're more home than they've been in a long time. And I can attest personally, oftentimes when I get home, I don't even boot up my computer. And that, for me, is a hell of a statement.
Do you want to add something?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. We often talk about many of our members come to us because their alternatives are co-working with their cat or dealing with dirty looks from baristas who wonder how long they're going to hog that AC outlet for. And that works for a while, but it gets pretty tiresome pretty quick. And so we try to really provide three things, which is inspiring workspace, a place that has sunlight, that feels good, is open, it's a place you walk in and feel good and want to be there, and then some curated community. So we have a team of 12 hosts, we call them, who are basically concierge for the members, and they interview members when they come in. They find out what are your interests, what are your skills, what are your needs, and then they try to curate introductions to others who can either benefit from you or provide benefit to you, and they're there all day, every day to be approached. And the third thing is events and programming, and I covered some of that earlier. And so somewhere in the mix of those three, I think, is where the benefit each member gets. But we survey members often, and it's not surprising that in a large community, the perceived benefit of why they're there is all over the map. So some people are solely there because we have showers for bike commuters in the basement, so you never know.
Okay.
Yeah, similar for Techstars, I'd say we have three primary benefits. One, as I mentioned before, the network. It's great to be in this co-working space, working with other like-minded people, tapping into the network. Two, every startup needs an advisor, and they need many of them. So access to the mentor pool. We have over 100 mentors in Seattle alone that work with us at Techstars. And three, just access to funding and having a clear path towards that.
Whatever she said. I'll add a couple of examples, though. One of the things we do regularly at 9 Mile Labs is we have 2 events every week. Those are structured events. Those are the only mandatory events, by the way, for the companies. But what we do at those events is invite folks who have experience in certain areas. Go-to-market planning. How do you develop a revenue model? How do you think about costs? How do you think about your technology architecture? We invite those, and for technology architecture, we had, for instance, Alex Gunaris, who was the TA for Bill Gates, who is the founder and CEO of Concurrix right now. So those are the type of people we're inviting. So the startups get access to the type of advice, that they get exposure to the type of people that will truly change their perspective. They're not just thinking about, here's this little thing I'm doing. They help them kind of raise the level of focus so they can actually serve their customers better and building a scalable and repeatable product as well as business model as they move forward. That is in addition to all of the events that Surf conducts and all of our companies have access to anyway. That really adds the type of flavor that you cannot get when you're in your basement, like Seaton described. Surf and Seaton, I just consider them the same thing. Like Seaton described. The other thing is the mentors. One of the things that was clear to us, having learned from Techstars and a number of other great accelerators that have preceded us, is that mentorship is the core value that an accelerator offers. And one of the things that we have done is we have ensured that we have designated mentors, at least 2 mentors per startup. What that does is we have assigned a certain amount of obligation or responsibility on the mentors that, hey, you guys are responsible for filling this certain gap that the startup has. Of course, startups are accountable for driving that engagement. But the idea is to be able to provide that environment that would not be available to entrepreneurs otherwise. And of course, just like Techstars does, exposure to investors, exposure to pitch practices. We invited a presentation training coach who doesn't train you on content. He will train you on pitching techniques, presentation techniques. Those are all of the things that you would get exposure to or you would get value from that you would otherwise not get.
All right, thank you. So my next question, as you notice, we've got the representatives here, Brian and Seaton for Hub Seattle and Surf. They've got the membership model, and they're more the what we call them, I guess, incubator. Sanjay and Lindsay are from 9 Mile Labs and Techstars. They're accelerators where they give investment. You have to apply to get in the program, and only a certain number get in. So my next question is, I want it to be a little playful, but I want to see if we can get something going here. This is for Brian and Seton first. Suppose I want you to imagine that someone's coming to you and saying, I'm considering joining Hub or Surf. Which one, why should I join your organization?
Wow.
You'll find out that there's a nice level of incestuousness happening in that Surf and Hub actually have some shared members. Actually, 9 Mile and Hub, I believe, have at least one shared team. And we also have some Techstar folks that are members.
Okay,
down at
enough
Hub.
with the nice. Why should we?
Well, I mean, the truth is, I think Seton put it right. Neither of us are in this because it's a great business model. So we win when the community wins, which is more startups doing well. So there are definitely, different offerings that we have. Seton, if you're tech digital, you're going to find other people who are tech digital there. We're a much broader community. We're about 20% service provider, about 20% innovative nonprofits, about 20% tech, and then the rest are kind of impact entrepreneurs. So the microfinance, people looking to do, kind of the conscious company type of work, looking to address poverty and environmental issues through business. So it's a mix of the communities. And then really, if I was an entrepreneur launching a company, I would do what a fair number of the mentors, yourself included, do, right, which is take advantage of all of us, right? If I had the time, I'd be at Surf 2 days a week, I'd be at Hub 2 days a week, and I'd try to get up to South Lake Union 1 day a week. And so there's a fair number of people that do that, and I think that's the way to do it. We all have offerings. There's a wealth of resources, and if you can split your time, you're going to get the most by going to the different places. Is that too diplomatic?
Very egalitarian, but let's hear from
Very,
Seton.
very, very nice. Thank you very much. Actually, I love the Hub. I was there at your opening. It's a fabulous place. It's really incredible. 4 floors of amazing stuff going on. 2 big floors filled up with permanent installations, and then 2 floors for your Hub community. It's tremendous what you've put together. And
our incubator partner, Fledge, launched out of Surf. So
there you go. So, yeah. And I'd say that I've attended quite a few of your events, and I wish I could go to more of them. You put on a great, very professional setting. It's there's a lot of wood beams where we have concrete. So. Which one's more solid? I don't know, but they're totally different styles. And I often tell people, people say, why? John Cook posed a question when he was interviewing me before we actually had a lease. He says, why are you doing this? Don't you know there's dead incubators all around town? They've failed. Why do you want to do this? And I said very candidly to John, I said, well, there are people that like vanilla ice cream, those that like chocolate, some just eat strawberry, and over here we're going to have coconut, mango, and papaya. And he looked at me like, huh? So we have a different flavor, and the Hub and Surf cater to a different persona, if you will. There's a different mood. They're very complementary, and I want to see ongoing synergy. I think it's fabulous, and I frankly think that Seattle and Bellevue and the whole community, we should have more. I mean, down in California, we're competing with Market Street, and Market Street has a mile full of incubators, accelerators, and who knows what, bars that don't close. It's just an amazing difference. We need to do the same thing here in Seattle. So we need to be friends, not battle. And there's no reason to battle. There's plenty of opportunity here, and I really do think we offer a different flavor.
Okay, so that's helpful, but I still like to hear a little bit more from each of you about the difference in the flavor, if you can characterize that a little more succinctly, so people can get an idea of what to expect.
Well, the way we have our furniture laid out is the way it arrived. When I signed the lease, it was already there. It was cubicles, somewhat dated, but in nice condition, and it gives each company a little bit of privacy from the next. So as I see Hub, it's a little bit more of an open floor plan, elastic furniture, things move around, you're facing across the table to somebody, where we have a much more secluded kind of more library setting. I think yours is a more vibrant active community. I think we both have a list of events that are amazing. We bring great speakers through, great networking opportunity. But I think really the flavor difference is that ours is much quieter. I would kind of put it onto that category. Otherwise, and we have to ride an elevator to get to where we're at. You have a beautiful staircase going up.
Irresistible staircase is what we call it.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, from a design perspective, I'd say that's completely right. Our idea was collaboration and community is default, privacy is at your option. So around the outside, there's what we call phone booths, which are rooms that can fit 2 or 3 people. So you get a private phone call, you have a meeting, you pop into there. But otherwise, you're out, you're facing each other, and you're working. One thing that I think is a huge benefit from what I've seen Surf offers that Hub doesn't offer in the same way is for people who are coming to something new in tech, where they're not already established such that they know what they need to do. They just need to go out and operate it. The community has a broader wealth of information because of the narrow focus on the digital and on the tech. And so I've heard great tales. I mean, you shared one yourself of put whatever the line of code is at the end of the
SLEF.
Yeah.
Or
So
SELF.
a lot of the tech folks that are at Hub are kind of coming from a place where they are somewhat mid-stage entrepreneurs, so they're not as hungry for that level of input. And so I think for some of the earlier ones that are really coming to something that they've never coded in before, there's something where they're really not native to it. There's extra community resources to be had at Surf that might be one step removed if you're in a place like Hub.
And I think another flavor aspect is if you're running a nonprofit, clearly the Hub offers a much more flavor focus for the nonprofit. The philanthropic, the Endeavor Pledge, for example, focuses on social enterprise. There's a lot of influence there. We're not looking after social good. We're after the bottom line. We've got a bunch of companies that are looking to build big, scalable companies that are going to make a lot of cash. Very few of our companies really have a bent towards a society mission. I'm disappointed by that because I have a real yearning towards alternative energy and social good because I've traveled so much of the world. So I commend you for being able to do that. And it's very difficult to do that with people working on something that running a business model where your clients have a marginal business model. I think you have a big challenge there. Whereas what we're looking at is ultimately one of our business models, frankly, is if some of our companies are successful, they could be the next Twitter or YouTube or what have you, and they hopefully will be taking my phone call when I say we need a big sponsor. So, you know, that's the missing part of our business model is hopefully we're building relationships with companies that will grow. We're very commercial, you're very nonprofit. Would that be a fair assessment?
We're finally going to have a little bit of pushback. So I'd say we definitely have space for nonprofits, but we really have a focus on nonprofits that are taking market-driven approaches to issues.
Okay.
So we have a huge entrepreneurial bias. So if you are a nonprofit, we want you to be thinking like an entrepreneur. We want you to be thinking in terms of leverage, scale, and impact. And we say we're structurally agnostic. Some nonprofits that are run as enterprises can do great good in the world. So a great example of a local nonprofit that's modeled that. Some of you know Kushal, the founder of Vitana, now the chairman over there. Vitana is a nonprofit that's providing student loans in developing countries in almost a Kiva-like model. And Kushal is Amazon through and through. And he runs it like when he was active CEO, he ran it very much like a tech startup would run. And so that's the sort of nonprofits that we like seeing in the space. Actually, Richard Branson has this great quote from a while back. He was on the Colbert Report, and he told Stephen that he was now defining himself as a social entrepreneur. And Stephen gave him one of the raised eyebrow looks and said, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "Well, the truth is the world's problems are so vast, so big that the nonprofits we have simply can't solve them. We need business women and men who think in terms of leverage, scale, and impact, because that's the size of the issues that we're facing." So I would agree that, yeah, we definitely have room for nonprofits, but we have a very specific type that we like to see.
That's what I was looking for, that kind of discussion. I might also add just one footnote about the Hub Seattle. Brian mentioned this earlier, but the third and fourth floor are occupied by two very interesting sort of I guess tenants you call them, but they're partners. But the energy there really does spill over. And one of those is Social Venture Partners, highly focused on impact investing, and also Bainbridge Graduate Institute, which focuses on offering an MBA in sustainability, I guess is what they call it, right?
Sustainable business.
Sustainable business, right? And so there's it's a bigger space, and they have these other partners in the same building, and there's a lot of interaction that happens between those organizations. So. All right, so now I'd like the microphones to switch, and I want to ask the same question to Lindsay and Sanjay. I was giving you a little bit of time to think about this. So just imagine that I'm an entrepreneur with a new business, and I'm looking to apply to an accelerator with, looking for the investment and looking for the, the mentorship. What would you say is your differentiator, vis-a-vis each other?
Yeah, I would say Techstars' biggest differentiator is that we have sister cities throughout the nation and now internationally. So we kind of expand outside the walls of Seattle with our network and mentors. That being said, we also don't take one specific type of company. We take B2B, B2C. We take kind of a mixed bag every year at Techstars Seattle. Our space is run out of Founders Co-op, which is kind of a unique space where we have the Easy, where there's a lot of meetups. So it's kind of lots of different entrepreneurs and startups coming through. We also, Founders Co-op is run out of there, the Microsoft Accelerator, Techstars, Code Fellows, other startups. So I think that creates kind of a unique environment that you're kind of always getting traffic from different types of people and media. So I think that's what I would say are kind of our big differentiators.
Okay, and how about you, Sanjay, for 9 Mile Labs?
I would just take a step back and think about, if you're an entrepreneur, there are probably a couple of things at least that you're looking at in picking an accelerator. One is track record. The second is the mentors. I truly believe mentors is the core. But from a track record perspective, there's no competing with Techstars. Phenomenal track record, great founding team. There is. I don't even want to talk about that. If it's unfair. And if so, that is one factor you would want to look at. The other factor you would want to look at is, if you are a specific type of business, what kind of mentors are you going to look for? If you're a B2B startup, I would contend that 9 Mile Labs has a very, very competitive offering in terms of the types of mentors we offer to the startups. Again, mentors is the core value that an accelerator can offer to entrepreneurs. So that's what makes the difference between success and failure. And we believe that, considering the track record of the founders, the 5 partners that we have on the team, along with the literally dozens, if not more, mentors we have on deck, I believe that's really a huge deal.
Okay, thank you. So I got a couple of more questions, and then I want you to be thinking of your questions. We're going to open this up for Q&A in just a moment. But I want to finish up here with two questions, and this is for each of you. And this is a little, this question is, I would like you to share 1 or 2 success stories of members or people that have come in your program. Now, I know that Techstars has been around a lot longer than, I guess, beginning of last year, the other 3 programs weren't even in existence. But so it doesn't have to be some kind of final exit but what are some success stories that you'd like to share about people that have been in your program and what the benefit they've gotten from that? So anybody jump in with that.
I'll just start out on a national level. I think a big success story from Techstars is SendGrid. On a local level, specifically talking about Techstars Seattle, Every Move, Remotive, Haiku Deck. Those just to name a few of our success stories from Techstars Seattle.
Okay, anybody else about stories about what they're? Yeah.
I can talk about. I can make a claim that no accelerator in the world can make, which is all of the companies that have gone through our program are still around. We are in week 9 of our program, so enough said.
I got to tell you that every day for me, feels like success, because every day I get stories from the different people that are on the floor about who they've met and how they've helped each other. It's just incredible. And it happens at the kitchen. It happens at the coffee pot. It happens in the hallway. It happens in the elevator. It happens all day long where people are bumping into new people. Almost everyone on the floor brings one visitor a day. So while we have 100 people on the floor, we have 100 visitors a day. There's a revolving door at the front entrance. So we have an opportunity for people to bump into incredible folks. For example, today, I took a tour with a gentleman by the name of Mitch Stein from years ago in the 1990s. He was with Apple, and he's the one that coined the phrase user experience. Well, it took me 2 hours to go from the kitchen through a loop and back to the kitchen because everybody had a conversation with him. So today was just a fabulous day. I mean, and then 2 more hours to go to the 9 Mile Lab site and meet the other members, and we passed by most of the companies, just to give you a clue. So these type of interactions is the real true magic of watching a community coming together and helping each other openly, without constraints, without expectations of something returned, just because they want to see that. So those are the most hard to measure, but one measure was one of our employees, one of our members needed some help. They needed some help with iPhone programming, much like I did. So I made an introduction between Patrick and Dennis. And Dennis was sitting there going like, I don't know why I'm joining this membership. I don't really need to be here, but I'll come once in a while. And he came once in a while, and he wasn't there very often. But I made the introduction. And they formed a company. He joined the company. And so Dennis is working for Patrick now. And so they're on one side, and they were one of 5 of our members applied to 9 Mile Labs. They had 100 members, 100 applicants. They picked 9, of which 3 of them were from Surf. So that was pretty great, including Dennis. So Dennis has gone from sitting at a window going, what am I doing here, to getting hired, to now being in 9 Mile Labs and sees an incredible future. So the trajectory is what's so exciting, and how people come together and help each other. Can't be beat. Every day is amazing.
Okay, how about you, Brian?
Yeah, what a great question. I mean, there's favorite moments for me, and then probably moments where we've really seen the community do incredible things, and that's always what it is. As Seton was pointing out, there's at best, sometimes I feel like the orchestra conductor who can maybe say a little bit more from the violin section, but they're the ones playing the instrument. So we get some cool folks unexpectedly showing up. A few weeks ago, we had, in the course of 2 weeks, founder of WordPress, Matt, was in the building and jumped up on stage and gave an impromptu speech on why open source is his generation's, I think we're probably close enough to be the same generation, our generation's most impactful gift to the world. And so moments like that, you can't manufacture when you have someone show up like that and stand up and share that with the community. Incredibly inspiring. Other moments where we see great connections happen. We've had a few companies quickly outgrow our space. One that was in Fledge while it was house at Surf Incubator is a clean burning cook stove company, which is, I'll give one kind of brick and mortar example and then one kind of more tech example. So this is a company that looks at developing countries and says that cooking over open fire camp stoves is damaging to the individuals in that hut because they're breathing that in. It's difficult for children to study by the light, and it's really bad for the environment. So they developed clean burning cook stoves that they can sell at a cost affordable to someone at the bottom of the pyramid living on $2 a day or less to replace that open fire camp stove. They went through Fledge, the incubator, and have since raised in the last 6 months $4.2 million and been featured at the Clinton Global Initiative and a number of things, and are still based out on Vashon. We just visited them 2 days ago. So seen some great success stories like that, have some hope for a lot lot of the entrepreneurs in the space right now. We're privileged to have the former head of the local Seattle Facebook office building a tech company at Hub. And so there's a number of we know they're going to be rock stars when they decide to come out of stealth mode. And so it's fun to get to see them in that mode. And those moments when you curate that introduction or get to stand to the side and see that kitchen moment. We designed our kitchens to be super open because, like a great house party, like those are where you want the serendipitous collisions to occur. And those moments are just incredibly satisfying. So yeah, I'd agree with Seton. Every day there's a different unexpected one, and some of them lead really cool places, new businesses, new partnerships, new funding, and some of them just go up into the ether.
Thank you. So the final question is real quick and simple. So if somebody in the audience wanted to connect with your program, what would be the best way for them to do that?
I'll start. I brought our handy get out of your house free cards. So anyone who is currently co-working with their cat or knows their barista's middle name, go ahead and trade me a card for a card. We'll give you a free trial day to come hang out with us, and that's a great way to connect.
My email address is sanjay@ninemilelabs.com. That's Kevin at 9milelabs.com. Our website is 9milelabs.com. Very simple.
Okay, Sanjay, one other question for both you and Lindsay. What is your program cycle time? Do you have...
Yeah, a great question, Brian. I forgot to mention. So that's one way in which we are different from Techstars. Because we are focused... Sorry, it's going to be a long answer to a short question.
That's okay.
Because we focus very explicitly on B2B, ours is a 6-month program. And what we do during that program is, of course, the mentorship and the introductions, the midterm pitch reviews with investors for the companies. So ours is a 6-month program. It started in April, ends in September. And we still haven't announced the dates for our next cohort yet.
All right.
Well, for Surf, it happens every day. People just walk in. They sometimes come from out of town. They hear about Surf. They come up the elevator, and we give them a welcome reception, and we give them a place at the cafe. They get to know what we're doing. They can explore taking different membership, or they can just be part of the community. We pretty much have an open door policy. In fact, Will sits at, if the door's closed, it's only because of HIPAA requirements from our landlord. Otherwise, we have someone posted at the door. The door is open. You just walk right in and say hello. And we're at the 2nd and Marion, which is right up the street from the ferry terminal. So go for a ride to Bainbridge Island, come back, hang out.
So the Techstars cycle for Techstars Seattle, we have our next class starting in August, and it runs until the end of October. So we just closed. We just had application deadlines May 31st. So we're deep in selection process right now. And I'd say the best way to engage with us is you can email me at lindsay.batan@techstars.com, Andy Sack at techstars.com. Andy and I also try to make it to Louisa's Cafe on Tuesday mornings from 8:30 to 10, and that's just anyone can come, meet up. There's entrepreneurs there, investors. That's a great way to engage with us. Aside from emailing us, come to our demo day on October 24th. We have a huge community section. We have a section for mentors, investors, and media, as well as a community section. And we're throwing a great casino-themed after party. And so that's a great way to connect with people from Techstars, the founders, and other members of the startup community in Seattle.
All right, thanks. Let's give our panel a big hand for the right. So now, if anybody has a question, raise your hand. We'd like to have the mic passed to you so that we can get you on the video on the recording. So anybody got a question? So Jamie, have you got a mic? Or here we go. Yeah, so hold the microphone really close to your mouth when you talk. So, yeah.
This question is for Sanjay. Earlier on in one of the discussions, did you mention that your focus is on healthcare, or did you cut across industries?
It's B2B, so if you're targeting healthcare and selling to healthcare organizations, which could mean payers or providers, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
This is for every single one of you. What is the average stage of company, the development? Are they in ideation, prototyping? Do they have customers? Are they selling? What is the average company that goes through your each program or incubator?
So it really varies by the company. So you can be anywhere from a solid team with just nothing more than idea to a solid team that has $1 million plus in revenue. So really it's case by case of each company that we look at. The number one thing we look at when we're looking at accepting a company into Techstars is the team. Like, can you iterate? Can you execute? How cohesive is the team? So I don't know if that really answers your question, but yeah, it's really a mixed bag.
So for Surf, what we have is a full spectrum. We have people that are looking for jobs. They come in and hope to join companies, and that's an offer as well. Anybody's looking for a job, we're bound to have some company that's doing that. So we have people that are kicking the tires, like Dennis, just hanging out, all the way up to companies that are funded with more than $1 million. So we have the full spectrum. But the typical zone, if you would, is typically two people. Two people that have an idea, they've got a prototype, they've got a good domain expertise, and they're trying to put pieces together. That's pretty much our sweet spot.
Very similar to what Lindsay said. In our current cohort, we have a team where the co-founders got together 3 weeks before the program started. So they actually incorporated 3 weeks before the program. They met before then, but the second co-founder hadn't decided yet at what point does he want to leave Microsoft. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is we have a company where the founder has an offshore development team in Brazil. So it's quite a spectrum. I think the important thing, and I know I sound like a broken record, if the entrepreneur feels like they need access to a mentor network, this is the place for you, regardless of the stage, and that applies to, I believe, Techstars as well as 9 Mile Labs.
Yeah, I'll violate Brian's earlier request and give a hub answer and a fledge answer.
Go ahead.
And so the hub answer is it's all across the map. One of our hub companies' most recent round was a $10 million round, all the way down to someone who I might have just come in across the street from Union Gospel Mission and have $2 to their name. So we have a huge range. The majority of the companies are at early revenue stage in terms of the spectrum. The fledge answer, the incubator, the majority of those companies are at idea stage. So there's a few that have a couple bucks in revenue, but the vast majority of them are at idea stage or just beyond.
All right, thanks. More questions?
Good evening. So I had a question about mentorship. So what is your selection criteria for mentors, and what do they get out of this?
Yeah, so to be a mentor for Techstars Seattle, you have to kind of fall into one of 3 buckets. 1, be an investor in a Techstars company. 2, be at a C-level of an exited company. And 3, be an expert in some domain, so UX, or be an expert in something. So that's kind of how because we have a robust pool, that's kind of how we select who we are going to let mentor. And what they really get out of it is kind of paying forward. All of our mentors are volunteers, so they're really volunteering their time, and that's on average they're 1 to 2 hours a week that they're putting in. And I think that from what I've heard from the feedback from our mentors, it's really fulfilling for them, and kind of just for the greater ecosystem. They want to see companies succeed in Seattle, and that's why they do it.
At 9 Mile Labs, what we have done is we've taken the network of professionals that we have known over the years, the 5 partners have known over the years, and really focused on those that we believe have the competence, skills, experience, but also commitment to want to engage. So that's the primary criteria. It's an invite-only kind of a situation. The second thing that we do is, which is slightly different from Techstars, is we reserve a pool of equity that we get from the startups for mentors. That pool, any profits that come from the startups eventually, we will share a portion of those profits with the mentors. Now, to be clear, that is an optional arrangement. There are mentors who will not be very interested in those types of arrangements because of the conflict that could cause with the companies they're working for. especially larger companies like Boeing and Microsoft. But the idea is that we are very committed to see, as I mentioned before, we're very committed to seeing the ecosystem grow. And part of seeing that ecosystem grow is share in the upside that arise from any success within the startups. Hence, we've taken a slightly different approach to mentorship. None of our mentors do this for the money. They're certainly not going to get rich off of this. The important thing, though, is that it's the concept is one of sharing, of being able to share the upside with all those that are involved in the ecosystem, in the community of supporting these startups.
So our mentorship program is really pretty open. Basically, each person that's at SURF can mentor anybody there. So we have no method to constrict it. And we don't want to. We want to have it as flexible as possible. We do have a few mentors that have specifically said they want to come in on certain days and do office hours, and we talk through what their interests are and how they go. There is no funds exchanged that we know of, but the whole thing is really designed to be open. And if anyone here is interested in being a mentor and wants to work with early stage startups, oftentimes they just need coaching. They don't need necessarily programming language or even go-to-market strategy. They need somebody else to review their pitch and give them critique. Even if you're an English major, we need you, because some of the English is not so good. And some of the ideas are not so clear. And we actually need people that are just curious about startups to be able to listen and help and share. And if you've got an idea of how to reach the market or how to make a product better, I'm all over that. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I'll offer just a quick thought as well. Probably the number one group that comes to me that I don't know what to say to is mentors. We just have a glut of them. Seattle's an incredibly giving community, right? So people who have had a little bit of success they love giving back. They love connecting, and especially businessmen and women who have a chance to connect with something that's really inspiring. Like, how in the world do you manufacture clean burning cook stoves in Kenya as opposed to China, and sell them through a non-existent supply chain, right? The guy who ran Adobe's supply chains kind of loved puzzling over that for hours. So our problem is really how to curate them well. So especially on the Fledge side, and we're learning some from Techstars and the other incubators I've been around longer, of how do you really curate mentorship so that the entrepreneurs don't feel yanked, like the pendulum swing all the way this way, and then they meet with the next person who's just as compelling, but they say all the way that way. But in terms of sourcing mentors, there's no shortage of them. It's curating them and helping them engage in a way that's sustained, that the magic is in.
Yeah, and I would agree with what both Brian and Seton have said about mentorships and the programs that are offered. And just on a personal note, I sometimes give some educational sessions at SURF, and I'm doing one on Monday from 3 to 5 about how to write an investor-ready business plan. And you can check it out on the SURF Incubator meetup group, I believe. So, all right, any other questions? All right, go ahead.
These are for the accelerators. What kind of relationship do you guys have after the companies go, or would you have, since you guys are in your cohort, after they're done with the accelerator program?
Yeah, for Techstars Seattle, we hold every other month we hold alumni happy hour to invite any teams that are still around in Seattle. So just to keep everyone connected, meet new teams. Like last time we invited Microsoft Accelerator people, so we're kind of mixing groups. Sometimes we'll invite mentors to that as well. So that's one level of engagement. Often post-program teams are allowed to stay in the space for 3 months or however long they want, depending on them, like what stage they're at, if they want to move out. And so we offer that up and hold office hours still, and really whenever they need to contact Andy or anybody from Techstars, they can just email us and stay engaged that way as well. There's also a founders conference for all the Techstars cities every year that they hold. This year it was in Boston, so it's like 3-day conference where all founders from all the cities come, and they hold different sessions, and it's a great chance to just stay connected on what's going on and where everybody's at. So we try to do a lot of different social activities to keep people engaged and continue to support our companies.
Well, I feel like a parent right now who's still raising kids and can't even imagine life without those kids. But jokes aside, like I said, we are in week 9 of our program, of our very first program. But the one area that I fully expect us to continue to move forward is the idea of the alumni helping current startups. And I think that idea has a phenomenal amount of value and is very consistent with what we've been trying to do, which is ultimately help the startup community grow within the Seattle ecosystem. But one thing that I would say is one idea that we constantly try to push with the startups is you'll get a lot of mentorship, you'll get a lot of guidance from us, but ultimately it's your company. So at some point you have to take wing and go, fly away.
Okay, thanks.
So I kind of want to bring the conversation up one level and ask from the panelists' opinion, what is the missing ingredient in Seattle for keeping startups here, right? So I had the opportunity to talk to a Seattle-based startup who went to YC for a few months, and now they packed up and moved to San Francisco. So what are things that you, in your different organizations or groups, can do to actually keep that interest and build upon it to foster this community that can stay in Seattle?
I don't think there's anything missing in the Seattle ecosystem. Yes, there's a lot more we could do. So let me say this. There are a lot of organizations that are deeply involved in supporting startups, early stage as well as late stage. There are other elements of the ecosystem that can definitely be more involved and more engaged. But ultimately, it's when entrepreneurs see that support system forming around helping startups, that's when more of them feel more confident about jumping in. And then there's the little matter of the economic cycle when people feel more confident about leaving their jobs and going out on their own.
I would agree. I would say when speaking for Techstars Seattle, when we lose a company from Seattle, it's usually not for reasons that are necessarily in Seattle. It might be they're from the East Coast and they want to go back to the East Coast. Obviously, San Francisco is alluring, but that being said, I think that Seattle is definitely on the map. Maris McEdward and I were traveling kind of throughout the Northwest up to Vancouver, BC and Portland, and you kind of get a sense once you visit other cities that there is an allure to Seattle, and I don't think people are in any hurry to leave. I don't think we're necessarily missing anything. We're still a growing community, and I think people are excited to come to Seattle and be a part of it.
I'd love to be really positive and give you a positive answer, but I have a negative view on this one. I think Seattle does have magic. It has beauty. It's a great community. People are wonderful, supportive. I'm inspired by it. However, the truth of the matter is I've said goodbye to too many startups that have headed to San Francisco. The drawing card is clear. It's a faster path to money with a higher evaluation. Where would you want to go? All else being equal. So when they have a strong family tie or they have engagement here, they're going to stay. If they have the choice to go down there and get more money and better pricing for their stock, they're going to jump on that car, train, plane, and get down to San Francisco. It happens too frequently. And I believe that what we really need to do is find a way to offset, frankly, the cost. If the costs were more subsidized, and there was a way that they could be supported during the seed stage level, I think they would grow further, gather more roots, and have a bigger team that would be reticent to relocate. But when there's only one or two, for example, one company had two, and they had a dispute, and they split up, and they were still looking for money. And one of the investors says, "Oh, you've broken up? Come to California. I'll fund you if you come." And so he's probably going to go to California this week. I don't know what else you can do. I mean, the scenery is stunning. The buildings are great. The people are wonderful. We've got all these programs. We've got great mentors and sponsors and support, but it's just not enough. You got to overcome that one hurdle of survival. And when a company is marginally surviving and they have a chance to go to California where they get snapped up immediately because there's a lot of dumb money in California that's ready to invest. I'm sorry, that's a term of art. Dumb money, where people will say, well, this has got to be good. I'll put the money without any due diligence. They just think it sounds good, so we'll invest. And so with the downturn of the economy where, Uncle Joe had the money, had stocks, he could sell something. He had an IRA that he could cash in or something. You might go see Joe. But after everybody's portfolio is decimated, the seed capital, I think, is gone. And in California, they bypass the seed capital. They don't need it. They go right to angel. Right from an idea, right to angel, $100,000, $300,000. It's not a concern. There's many more millionaires that are ready to write a check on a flyer.
I'll add one more negative point, and then I'll turn happy.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. This isn't a critique that I necessarily think I can sit solidly in, but I've heard it around town and I haven't heard it yet here, is that the developer talent pool in Seattle is extremely deep, but the executor in terms of the person who kind of takes the reins of the company is not as deep. And so we have some of the world-class developers, but in terms of how you harness that energy and build a company in a positive direction at the right pace, might be lacking some there. I feel like it's a good hypothesis, one that I'm not yet totally confident in agreeing with, but heard it in a number of places. So that's my sitting there. On the positive side, I'd say there are some great signs of hope happening right now in terms of the Seattle entrepreneurship community. So for about the last year, the mayor's been gathering a tech roundtable looking at places like New York City and what Bloomberg did with the digital roadmap there, and has been drawing on a number of folks, Chris from Founders Co-op and a number of successful CEOs of companies that have kept talent here, and been inviting that conversation at the civic level of how do we not only attract but retain incredible talent. And so the city, I think just 2 weeks ago, announced the Startup Seattle initiative, which Red Rusak, who's at Founders Co-op, most recognizable guy in the room, has been putting blood, sweat, and tears into for a long time. So the government's getting behind it. The city values it. They want to see it built out. And then on the investor side, I think that's, if I had to give a one-word answer, it would be what Seaton said too, right? You don't even need a word. So there's some folks who are really putting in energy around that. John Seacrest is one to be praised. He's, like Brian, someone who gets to take advantage of all of us and bring value to all of us. He spends time at each of our places. And John is behind the Seattle Angel Conference, and his hypothesis is that the money's out there. The money exists in Seattle. It's not for the lack of money. The wallets are fat enough. It's that it's not being invested in startups. And so his goal is to turn far more millionaires into angel investors, and he's doing so through the Seattle Angel Conference. We just got to host at Hub a few weeks ago and got to see some big checks be written, and that's really inspirational. But we need 10, 15, 20 John Seacrest, despite his never lacking energy and drive.
Yeah, he's in Iceland right now, I think.
Right, Startup Iceland.
He gets around.
I just add one more thing to it. When I said there's nothing missing in Seattle, the idea is all of the raw materials required for growing a startup ecosystem are here. As Brad Feld said in his book, Startup Communities, it's the flywheel effect that takes some time. It takes certain leaders in the community, which are typically entrepreneurs, who are going to kick off or start off that flywheel effect. And then as people who are sitting on the periphery see the impact and see the excitement and see the ecosystem churning and growing, that's when other people kind of fall into that ecosystem. It takes time. Seattle is, and I don't think we'll ever see a point where Seattle is as attractive to startups as the Bay Area is. In fact, you'll probably never, very rarely will you see a startup from the Bay Area moving to Seattle because they just thought the ecosystem was better or there are more investors or what have you. I don't think that the objective should be to be like the Silicon Valley. The idea is there are certain characteristics to this area that we need to leverage. There's some talents, there's money. I think all the raw materials exist. It's just a matter of the entrepreneurs sitting in this room who need to take leadership in growing that community.
Excellent question, Monica. Thank you. We have another one over here.
I have a quick question about mentorships and a little qualifying question for you. What is the average age of your mentors in your programs, and then how many years in startup do they have to have under their belt in order to quote-unquote mentor? Because I'm sitting here feeling like I could be in your incubator program on one spectrum. The other spectrum, I could also be a mentor as well, because my startup is 5 years young and growing rapidly, but I feel like my journey of learning never ends. So how do you qualify the mentorship versus being an incubator?
You mean accelerator?
Yeah, both, all the above.
From our perspective, age is not the criteria at all. In fact, we have at least 2 startups, one startup where the founder was a mentor at Techstars last year. And I don't see that, I see that that trade-off happening all the time. I don't doubt it at all. There are at least, I'd say, half a dozen people out there who would very well qualify to be mentors in the program. So I don't think age has anything to do with it. What we do when we designate mentors within our program is we go through an intense session of gap analysis with each one of these companies. We do deep dives with the companies. We identify 3 key areas that are gaps for those companies. Then we enable connections between the mentors and the startups, and we use that triangulation process. The mentors have to see the value, mentors have to get excited about the startups. The startups have to see value in the mentors, and then we come in with our assessment of what the key gaps are, and that's how we do designation or allocation of mentors to startups. So it's a fairly intense process and has absolutely nothing to do with age.
Yeah, I would echo our process is more or less the same. We don't have an average age. Some of our mentors are Techstars alumni, and some of them have founded many companies, and this is like company number 5 under their belt. Or so we kind of figure out what are the mentors' expertise, what of the 3 buckets do they fall into, and then we do a mentor matching process. And we also do a lot of mentor mixers and a lot of social events for mentors to meet with co-founders more naturally and kind of match up with who they want to work with.
And for our mentorship, which is, as I said, wide open, sometimes we need some skill set. Somebody has SEO, for example, maybe very young, and they come to the table not for the business development necessarily, but for SEO, for example, or somebody else has programming specifics. There's some incredibly brilliant young people that are just fantastic, and then there's some not so young people that offer mentorship and support. I will say that if you would like to come, we have a number of ladies that are running wonderful companies, and they would love to have some guidance. They don't get a lot of support, so I think more women need to step up to the plate and help each other and change the ratio today.
Okay, question in the back here.
Yeah, so one final question, I think maybe we'll wrap it up. So for each of your organizations, where do you see what's going to be different in, let's say, 7 years? 7 years from now, what are you going to be that's different than what you are today?
Why don't we
The
say
joy of being in the
3 to 5 years?
I feel like I should just have a 5-year plan in the back pocket constantly, right? Just pull it out. So just to understand the question a little bit more, how our organization will be different in 5 to 7 years. I don't think we will be very different. I think the difference will be external. I think that we'll continue to improve on the processes that happen when someone touches and concerns the hub. What a lawyerly answer, right? I think that will largely remain the same, and the impact will be seen once they go out into the rest of the city and the rest of the world with their ventures succeeding, scaling, and creating really positive impact.
I love that question. The vision that I have is really a community sports space, so hopefully we have some amazingly successful startups that have grown into very significant companies, and they're going to come back to home and help the other companies. On top of that, we may be well funded in such a way that we can actually offer consistently scholarships to the companies that have really meaningful projects that we'd love to support, but they just need a little liquidity to get through that. I think there's an immense amount of ideas that just go nowhere because they can't even form the corporation, they can't pay payroll, they can't even buy their laptop, but they have a great idea. They have domain expertise, they're in a job, and if they could get a little help, I would love to be the one that could actually capitalize and help those companies. So this could be the flywheel effect that Sanjay was talking about would be tremendous, and I'd like to be kicking that flywheel every day. So I think in a few years, with some resources behind us and some history, where people will be signing up, we will then be looking at a probably more restrictive application process, and we'll have more floors. I'd love to take over the whole exchange building and make it just pop. There's 6 floors that are empty. Why not fill them up, make a whole community? So in 6 years from now, we could really be running serious cash flow, supporting companies, and having not just those companies that have succeeded giving us cash to keep the flywheel going, but also sending back employees to work and help the other companies. That's the vision that I have, and man, I can't wait to get there.
I think for Techstars, the vision is just to keep expanding. Just in this year alone, we started Techstars Chicago, London, Austin. Techstars also is partnering up with Microsoft, Kaplan, Nike. So just keep growing and be the brand for internet companies.
3 years down the road, what I would like to see is B2B startups from the Bay Area wanting to move to Seattle because 9 Mile Labs happens to be here. That would be my ambition. Don't know.
Yeah.
We'd love to find out.
All right, on that note, I think we're going to close the program. Let's give a big hand to everybody for panelists for being here. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming out this evening, and leave your name tags on the table on the way out. Thanks.